What's up, everybody? This is Marcus Lewis, and this is episode 14 of the Ask a Jazz Dude show, where Brandon Draper, the amazing Brandon Draper, comes through.
The amazing. Time for tricks. Time to do some tricks.
Definitely time. Let's start the show. All right, everybody. This is Brandon Draper here, and this is episode 14 of the Ask a Jazz Dude show. We got a cool blue tint going on here with the lighting, which is kind of trippy, but anyways.
That's trippy looking.
So, going to give some shout outs. Mitchtown is watching Omaha. What's up, Mitch? And Mitch will actually be our guest next week, so tune in for that. Sam Wiseman is watching. Dave Cooper, great trombonist, Kansas City. Hey, what's up? Beeson is just strolled through.
Well, Beeson.
Wait, when are you going to come bowling, man? I hear you, man. Good to see you. Linda Rochelle Dixon is watching from Georgia. Lucas Parker is watching. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you're watching on Facebook, be sure to like the Ask a Jazz Dude page. If you're watching later on YouTube, be sure to smash that subscribe button.
Is this a sponsor?
No. Yeah, it's even the wrong direction.
Getting paid to sponsor.
So anyways, all right, Brandon. So for the, two people that don't know who you are, because everybody knows Brandon Draper. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, I'm interested in people's stories, so like how you grew up and how you got into music.
The fun story is that I remember as a little kid, like a toddler, laying in the crib on my tummy, and I would thump my leg on the ground, and my leg would just flat hit the bed or the crib, whatever.
Right.
And that was super dope to, like, as a little kid, to like thump my foot. So my mom called me Thumper. I was actually keeping time, I think. I was keeping a rhythm just with my foot going bang, bang, bang. And then I got really fascinated with pots and pans and sticks. My dad is a keyboard player. He had a studio in our basement the whole time growing up. And then we moved to another house when I was older, and he had a giant studio with a pool table and lots of stuff. So music was always around. I don't remember not playing drums. There was never a moment where it was like, oh, I think I'll play drums for a living. That was always. It's kind of like, oh, I'm thirsty. I want to have a drink of water. You don't learn how to become thirsty. It's a natural thing, and I think music has always been that way for me. That I just naturally want to do it. So I grew up playing drums and piano and guitar, and my drum teacher thought it would be unhealthy for me to join school band as a beginner because I started taking lessons when I was 5. Uh-huh. So I was learning to read words and write words at the same time I was reading and writing music, and sitting in with my dad's band by like maybe 7 or 8 years old, like playing blues tunes. And so in 5th grade I learned the violin, and I was really bad, and it's really difficult to be in tune on a violin. Intonation is a challenge. So yeah. It was really good for my ears. It was really good for my ego. It was just really good for a lot of those things. So right. That's what I did growing up. I went to college. Here's a cool story. I was on a tour with my dad with one of his bands when I was 14, and it was in March. It was March Madness. We're at this hotel room in between shows. We're eating like Kentucky Fried Chicken or something. I just remember having plates of fried chicken and biscuits and the ball games on. Right. And I'm thinking, I'm on the road. I'm getting paid. This is the bomb. We're back?
We're back. Yeah, so hopefully some people will join back into the room. We lost our connection there for a second. So Anyway, so you were kind of talking about what your dad was saying about, doing it for the rest of your life, I think is when.
Yeah, I was 14 and on the road and getting paid the same wages you actually make now. It hasn't changed much, 20, 30 years.
Yep.
$100 gigs, wherever. And Dad was like, you got to go to school, you blah, 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 blah. So I'd grown up playing drum set. I grew up playing violin, guitar, piano. And I also got way into theater, which is not a surprise if you know me because I like to be goofy.
Right.
Then in college, I primarily focused on classical percussion. And part of the bug for that was I wasn't content playing one thing. So just playing drum set was great. But I also wanted to play marimba, snare drum, timpani, etc. Through high school, I did classical percussion. So Kansas City, jazz. I met DeAndre Manning, the great bassist and so drummer. Cool. I mean, he's like one of the most killing bass players in town. But I met him in high school. He was the all-state jazz drummer from Sumner, and I didn't audition for the jazz programs. I always auditioned for the classical programs because I wanted to play timpani in the orchestra. So I was the timpanist in the all-state group 3 years in a row, and that last year DeAndre was the drummer, and it was, I don't know who played drums the years before, and I'm sorry if I don't know you, but that last year when DeAndre was the drummer, it was the first time it was like, oh wow, that is a killing young jazz drummer.
Right.
And now gigs that I play with him, he plays bass. Better than any, right? So that's kind of the story. Got out of college, went to grad school, continued classical percussion, did a master's degree, and then started ping pong ping, different bands, all kinds of stuff.
Very cool, man. So talk a little bit, you're really close with your dad, and you talked a little bit about being on the road with your dad, and also your dad plays the organ, B3. And so talk a little bit more about your relationship with your dad and like what he means to you, like, musically and as a human being.
Yeah. Deep question. My dad is, well, you know him. He's a
great guy, man.
Great guy, real big, muscular. You kind of are surprised because I'm a tiny little guy, and my dad's works his butt off, and he's 69 and he's working right now. He's never going to stop working construction and doing music. What he means musically is he never pushed me to. He never told me I had to go do something. He never said like, well, you can't go do this unless you practice for 30 minutes. There was never like music in the house was always
right.
It was a natural thing. Like I said before, like you're thirsty, you go get some water. You're bored, you go play music. You're mad, you go play music. You're really excited, you go play music. You're tired of playing music, you go create something. He's a carpenter, so a few months ago, or maybe it was a year ago, I was in his shop in Salina, Kansas, and I was looking around in the shop at all these. He's built all of these tools and devices to help him do other jobs, like custom built contraptions or whatever. That fueled my design ideas as a drummer. So setting up the drum set, putting all kinds of different things. That guy was fast.
Yeah, it was
that was cool. That was a real person. That was almost like Mario Brothers. So that's what my dad. I think all of that, like constructing things, building things. He's really funny. He makes people laugh a lot. So I learned that as well. Married to my mom for 40 some years. I should do the math. But they're super amazing, strong couple that has managed a family and an artistic career. Dad turned down some really high-profile things to be a dad. I probably wouldn't have been born had he chose to just pursue fame and fortune.
Yeah.
So I think that says a lot.
Yeah.
He plays the organ with more soul than you really are ready for.
Yeah.
It's not about the millions of notes or all the changes and all the technical stuff. It's like he's got you can't really put it into words. He's got something there that is pretty rare.
Yeah, I agree, man. Totally. So yeah, guys, we lost the stream there for a second, but for those of you that are watching, if you could share this stream so that people can get back on and join us. We had a good crowd in the room, and then we lost the Wi-Fi, so we lost.
I said too many words. I just talked too much.
You shut down the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So,
no. Wait, that's a no.
So I'm gonna.
It's a beautiful day. People are probably outside.
Sure. Yeah, so I just shared it again. So hopefully, so guys, for those of you watching, it looks like Mitch is still on. Lucas, Jim Vandale, what's up? You can start to leave some questions in the comments if you have any questions for Brandon. He'd love to answer them, and I can pull them up too as they appear.
Yeah.
So if you have some questions for Brandon.
Bill Sundahl, what's up, Bill? Hey, from KKFI Studio.
See, I think that's the old stream that we lost.
You're the old stream.
Or if you click on it, see if it.
Hey, this is the bomb.
Yeah, I think that's the old one. So we're filming today. Brandon is on faculty at multiple places, and we're filming today from Johnson County Community College. So, that's why you see this backdrop there.
There we go. Reshare the new thing.
So cool. I want to get into some of your music here in a second. You've got a new release that's out that's pretty cool, innovative concepts. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So now you graduated from college, and then what was next for you, like in your journey?
I just wanted to keep learning. I knew that the 4-year college, when I was finished, I met my wife my freshman year, who was also a drummer. And,
cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. You've played gigs with her hi-hats.
Nice.
Yeah. She's
that's not her mannequin.
It's not. No, that's a totally other story. That has to do with John Brewer and some Burning Man episode that is a longer story. So I met Taryn, and we fell in love and played drums together. Studied Middle Eastern percussion together. That kind of. We were actually doing that before we dated. Like we learned. We studied with Glenn Velez, and that's where we started learning all the all the conical, the bowl, the syllables of building blocks of Indian music and tala. So we're going to graduate. She's a elementary school teacher, and she was like, I can find a job teaching anywhere. Let's just do whatever. I applied to a bunch of different graduate schools. Luckily, I got accepted to all of them, and then had to decide which one to go to. I went to the University of New Mexico because it's super arid, mountainous climate, close to Santa Fe. There's quite a few like high-end things that go on there, even though you're in the desert. And I really dug the professor there. Like I hit it off with him. Right, it was one of those like I knew, you know, when I met him. And so I focused on world percussion and drum set while doing a master's degree in percussion performance. The only bit was I had to meet the proficiencies that Scott put in front of me. That was his deal. He's like, hey man, you can do all this in-depth study of this other stuff, but first you have to get to this level on all of these things. So that was really cool. Really great jazz instructor there, Glenn Coster, Barry sax player that used to be music director for Maynard Ferguson.
Oh, cool.
And so that opened up doors to all kinds of other people. New Mexico has an incredible population of musicians that play cultural specific music or indigenous music. Cesar Bobele, if you mention his name in any like Cuban musician circle, heads seem to spin. He's a really fantastic trombonist from Havana that lives in Albuquerque. Has a great group called Son Como Son. So I got involved in salsa music. I subbed with the Santa Fe Symphony, the New Mexico Symphony. Bruce Dunlap lived in Santa Fe. Kevin Hayes Kevin Hayes, the great piano player.
So bad.
Lived in Santa Fe for a number of years while I was there. One of my super best friends, Luis Guerra, bass player from Texas, now living in Los Angeles, who's just a killing producer, bass player. what I realized with all of these different people is that I could play all of these styles of music. I don't have to just do one thing,
right?
And keep my doors open. And for my personality, that's important. If I just did the same type of gig every day, or if that was just it, I tend to burn out, and I need more. The way I look at it is, it's like, you know, you go to the restaurant and they give you your little kid thing. I don't know if they give it to you anymore. You're older than I am, but
I am much older.
Yeah, quite a bit. But you get this. Marcus is not that much older than me, but I think it's really funny. So, like months, like a couple months.
Yeah.
No, they give you your little coloring sheet, and then they give you a pack of 3 crayons. That's what they do, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't want the 3 crayons. I want the 164 crayons. I want the 750 crayons. And then once I get those, I want to melt some down and make new colors in regard to the musical offerings that I'm involved in, and how that feeds my life. Cool. So I guess that's it.
So I want to give some shout-outs really quick to some people who are watching. Chris Mowry from the Record Bar. What's up? Good to see you on here. We're planning a show in August. It's going to be fire. We'll tell you about that later. Nick Zuck is watching. Thanks for watching. Danny Pete. And Deborah Lee is watching, Ryan's mom.
Oh, hey, Deborah Lee. What's up?
She's also a great musician in her own right. So, anyways, guys, we're here. If you're just joining us, we're talking with drummer, actually multi-instrumentalist Brandon Draper. And you can find him on Instagram at Draperama. So you can see that at the bottom of the screen there. What is the story with Draperama? I always wondered that.
2003, I was teaching at a high school in New Mexico, and one of my best friends from high school, Alan, was living in San Francisco, and he was involved in a lot. I don't know exactly the different places Alan was employed, but he's like computer technical. He knows all that stuff really well. So he developed my website, and Google optimized it and everything way back when, and I just needed a name. I didn't want to go with BrandonDraper.com just because I thought, I don't know what I thought. You know what it was? There were a lot of jazz musicians that had websites that was just their name plus the word music, and I didn't want to be like them.
Nice.
So Rob Schneider had a skit on Saturday Night Live. Marcarino.
Oh, yeah.
Marcarama.
Yeah.
So, remember, like at the copy machine, making copies.
Yeah.
Right? And so I just thought, Draper Rama. It's a party on the web. It's like,
Cool.
Draper Palooza didn't work so well. So it's kind of silly. The good news is now, 15 years later, it's you can Google search my name, just Brandon Draper, and that website's the first thing that comes up. So that's great. If I'm out doing things and people are like, do you have a card, or how can I find you? It's just Google my name.
Right.
Musician, home of musician Brandon Draper comes up.
And you can't get BrandonDraper.com because the second thing that comes up is a photographer.
From Nebraska.
Oh, from Nebraska,
Yeah, I think so,
yeah. Cool.
I know about a bunch of Brandon Drapers. There's a Brandon Draper that just got, I think, indicted for killing a guy at a strip club in Arizona.
Okay.
That's not me.
Okay.
There's a Brandon Draper from Illinois that was murdered.
It's not
It's
funny.
not me. It's not. It's some I get Google. I have my stuff set up to get Google alerts when they talk about it.
Your name, yeah.
If I'm in anything, and so I see all that stuff. Oh, there's a dope wrestler named Brandon Draper that's like a teenager maybe, or he's in college. So there have been times that I've gotten links to like that wrestler Brandon Draper, and I thought, oh man, I could post this and my local friends would be really confused because, I'm kind of scrappy.
All right, so
that's the story of the Draper Rama website.
Mitch said he called that photographer for a gig. He sucks. Classic Mitch. I love it. Oh, man. Oh, that's hilarious. So, is from Omaha. Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about, you got a new release that's out digitally.
Yep.
Meditation Music Volume 1.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that project and why you decided to do it.
Okay. Playing cultural specific music, playing world music, and learning, especially in drumming, there's a incredible history of music being tied to some sort of spiritual practice.
Okay.
Beyond the 6th century BC. I mean, it goes way, 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 way back that humans want to be in rhythm with something. So we all have this rhythm inside our body. Every single one of us. Right. We all have a heartbeat. We all have, everything follows these different rhythms. If we're talking about, church bells, what's up, right? I guess that means we're on the half hour. They have the bells, but the sun's setting. I mean, we're going around, but we see the sun going up and down and tides coming in and out. So that was always a big part of the world drumming experience that I had growing up, and learning a rhythm, and then I would play that same rhythm for hours and get in a headspace, a zone, if you will. I then blended that later with accompanying yoga classes or playing in church for prayer services, or even for my own mental and just health and wellness, to go and play music and be in a rhythm. Fast forward to Kansas City, I got involved playing for some different yoga classes. Became just really, really comfortable and enjoying accompanying the yoga teacher in the same way I accompany you in a jazz group. So you're playing a solo on the trombone, and I'm supporting you as a jazz drummer. In a yoga class, I'm trying to manage the flow of the class, but it's a much slower arc. I think of the yoga class, the 50-minute or 75-minute class, as one song, which is really a challenge. Now, metaphorically speaking, planning your life out, it's really easy to talk about what you're doing today. You can sort of talk about what you're doing tomorrow or next week. For a lot of people, it's really difficult to talk about what they're doing 10 years from now. The geniuses that the folks that I want to be like, that I study, like somebody over there, like Marcus, thinking really long term. Yeah, think you know what I mean, like the city planners that made choices in how they built the infrastructure of a city for 100 years from now, not for their personal gain. You know? So musically, trying to get that long arc, I've become really comfortable with that. So I went in the studio with a good friend of mine, Brian Nicholas, from Tone Dimension Studio in Peculiar, Missouri. We set up 2 microphones with a disc in between, and what it does is it creates a binaural recording technique that sounds like the human ears directly in front of it. So then what I did was I sat down on the floor, we hit record. I actually Instagram live the whole recording. I just set it up and recorded the whole thing live. And I sat there, and I got into a meditative headspace, and I played tabla, metal tongue drums, and some Cooperman frame drums. The Cooperman frame drums actually belong to one of my mentors, Bongo Barry Bernstein. Barry was a music therapist that did a lot of research for Alzheimer's and music therapy, and was a good friend of Mickey Hart from the Grateful Dead, and that entire movement that is pushing the boundaries of how music can be beneficial for health and wellness. So the idea of this meditation CD was, I'm going to go in the studio, I'm going to sit on the floor, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to pray, and I'm going to play these instruments as one complete song, and then we're going to go and we're going to release it. And it's not your typical recording. You're not going to go listen to it and be like, oh, Brandon Draper's killing. It's like there's no showing off. It's this really long arc that is intended to try and help you just check out of just get out of the worries of the day and get into a headspace. And what's interesting is every time I listen back to the recording to just make sure we had everything mixed where we wanted it, there's no editing whatsoever. Everything is exactly it's one continuous track. I cut it up for the release so that way I could maximize sync licensing if that comes down the road, but that's a music business thing. It doesn't really matter. As I was listening back, I would very often forget I was supposed to be reviewing my own work.
Right.
So I think that it works. That's the meditation CD. That's the current release that's out. The next release is going to be a cassette, and it'll be released on cassette only for the first month. Partnered with a company from Tulsa, Oklahoma, Shout out to Natty Watson. Natty is a student at KU. He's actually a student in one of my music business classes, and he has this killing boutique cassette label called Cult Love Sound Tapes, where they release. It's a cassette label, so I made that recording with all analog synths and a TR-808, a Roland rhythm composer. So it's like throwback to the 80s, and I recorded the whole thing to cassette. And so it sounds, like it's from that era. And I drive a Jeep that has a cassette player, so I think cassettes are still the jam.
Nice.
So those are the two most recent coming up.
Well, so we're going to play some examples you put together, kind of a...
this first example, check it out. The first song is from the 808 beat tape. It's unreleased, so this is the first time anyone's heard it. The second is a tune from an album we just recorded. Mitch Town, the great Hammond organ player from Omaha, he and I went in the studio with Chris Hazelton, and Hazelton, it's the first album that Hazelton was able to be behind the controls and not at the organ.
Nice.
So that'll be a release that'll come out digitally this summer, possibly in the fall. Mitch and I still have some things we want to do with it, but that's an original tune that you'll hear us play there, and then the last bit is just a little snippet from the meditation music record. And it's the take on the meditation record is Calm Inward Drive, which I think says quite a bit. Calm Inward Drive. That's what keeps us balanced and not overdoing things. It's that calm, but yet driven.
Cool. Yep. So, guys, leave in the comments here what you think, because this music's going to be the first time it's being heard anywhere, so it's kind of cool. And this is Brandon Draper's Laguna, and new duo record, and Calm Inward Drive. Hopefully this file will play.
lot older than me.
And we're back.
It's true.
So this is, if you're just tuning in, guys, this is Brandon Draper. That was some music from a few projects he's got going on. A couple of those have not been heard by anyone yet, so that's pretty awesome. So yeah. Anyway, so we're talking about meditation music and concepts. So do you meditate, or?
I pray. I do meditate, but I'm sorry, I'm distracted. Excuse me. Do you mind? I'm sorry, we're on television, right? Not television, but that's part of my other problem. I get so distracted by things. It's like if something else is going on. Squirrel! Do I meditate? Yes, I take time every day
Thanks, man.
to focus energy toward different things. I play guitar at a couple of churches. I grew up playing music in churches, and so I pray quite a bit. But I don't think making an album specifically for one religion is necessary. That's not necessarily what I wanted to do with this. So asking about spirituality, one of my best friends is a Sufi. I have other amazing friends that are Muslim, and there's just so many different things. I want to share the time on earth with everyone. I don't want to just go down one rabbit hole, if that makes sense. But the meditation CD is music for any type of spirituality practice or prayer or falling asleep or just trying to zen. There's a style of music that I've gotten into that I didn't see that it had a name until recently, but I got into bonobo and taiko, and I spent a long time with a group called Quixotic. I was the music director and played drums and wrote some music for them. They were kind of in a similar vibe with some of that, but this music, like what taiko does, Tycho, is they call it chill wave or synth wave, and it's just really mellow, retro sounding stuff that you just feel your blood pressure go down. So I guess that's the meditation vibe. The next record, the 808 beat tape, I made that inspired by the music of Stranger Things. After watching Stranger Things, I got inspired to start making some recordings that sounded like that. And so I made that a year and a half ago, and I'm just now getting it finalized for release. Then the other project with Mitch Town, when I first played with Mitch, I think the first time I played with him was with you.
Yep.
Wasn't it the three of us?
Yep.
And trombone, organ, and drums. And Mitch and I just, on the first tune, we hooked up on all of these things, right away, and looked at each other like, oh, wow, this is going to be fun. And then the power went out.
That's right.
There was a rainstorm,
right.
And so the first gig, we shut the power down on the basement of that spot. Going. So then Mitch and I just played a few more times, and every time we just hook up on these things, and I thought, man, let's just go in as a duo. Let's just record and have some fun and see what comes out. And I grew up playing organ and drums with my dad, and my dad's blues rock player. Mitch is he can do all of that, but he's also a jazz player, so it's fun to have that in the can. I'm also finishing a record with my dad that we've talked about writing horn parts for, to add a horn section featuring Marcus Lewis, who is actually a lot older than me than I thought. When we were at the break there, I found out when his birthday actually was, and it's quite a bit further out than I thought it was. So that's why Marcus is so much wiser. So then we also have an album that's the Draper Family Band. We're going to put that on vinyl, and I play guitar and sing, and my dad plays organ. For the record, I'll play most of the drums and some of the bass stuff as well. But that'll be coming out. I play guitar and sing and lead worship at a couple of churches here in town as another one of my jobs. So that's kind of an interesting tie-in. So I guess if there's any common thread to everything that I do is everything I do serves another element of what I do. I'm not going out and doing anything that's just its own deal, you know. So I get to play in church every week, so I'm filled up spiritually. I'm in shape musically, vocally. I get a chance to play guitars. I have an outlet for that. The University of Kansas, I teach music business, drum set, jazz combo, steel band. So I get to stay deep in the trenches in music education. Today we're here at Johnson County where I teach world music. I just teach a couple courses in world music. It's just a gen ed requirement where I get to teach. Today I'll be lecturing on music of India, and I think if we have time we'll get to Bali and talk about gamelan, which are all things I want to learn more about.
Yeah. So we have a question here, and then we actually have a video question too that we need to get to before we got to get out of here. So this is from Lucas Miguel Parker. How does your warm-up routine shift as you navigate different types of gigs? How different, if at all, is your headspace going into a rock show versus a jazz gig?
Lucas Parker, of course, perfect question. Okay, so Lucas, I played with a band called Particle for a number of years. Particle is a pretty well-known jam band, one of the pioneering bands of what they call jam-tronica or live-tronica, where it's live musicians playing to sound inspired by DJ culture.
Okay.
So a lot of electronic sounding stuff, and it's incredibly physical. So my warm-up routine in that band, I would listen to 30 minutes of a tambura drone. Tambura is an Indian instrument with 4 strings. It's the instrument that it's the resonant instrument that accompanies quite a bit of Hindustani music, music of India. So the 4 string. I actually have an app that has the tambura, so I'll pull it up. So I'd listen to that for 30 minutes and practice yoga with headphones on, sometimes in a green room at a really loud rock club where people are all around me partying and being crazy, and I would focus my energy to calm down before I went on stage. Also stretching out my arms and my body to get ready to play a 4-hour show that is pretty physically demanding.
Right.
And in that environment, I don't drink alcohol at all. I don't do drugs or anything, so I can stay focused on the music and let that be enough. And that's an important thing for me physically, to play drums at a high level. If I go play a jazz gig, how I warm up for that, a lot of times, honestly, I just show up and I start playing. I don't know if there's ever a day where I haven't already played drums. Like today, I already played a little bit this morning. There's instruments all over my house, and I just pick things up and we'll play. So, if it's a piano or anything else. Many years ago, when I was younger, I remember quite a few years where I would listen to Keith Jarrett, Jack DeJohnette, and Gary Peacock Standards Trio on the way to the gig. And why I would listen to those 3 is they play so contrapuntally. The 3 of them are so adventurous and brilliant by themselves that I could listen to the recording and listen to how each of them were making different choices, and that would kind of get my brain going to then go into a 4-hour standards gig. If I'm doing a rudimental thing, or if I'm doing a djembe or like West African, like any high energy thing like that, physical stretching is incredibly important. Guitar playing, vocal warm-ups. I sing for a half hour doing vocal warm-ups in the car.
Nice.
I got to study with a really great opera singer in college named Rebecca Copley Johnson. Rebecca sang in the New York Met.
Wow.
Many years ago, and I'm
nice.
from Lindsborg. Lindsborg's an incredibly rich vocal town. Like their vocal music is at a high level. So all the different instruments have very different warm-up routines. When I play with Ensemble Iberica, I play frame drums. I play a lot of stuff where I have to, my individual fingers have to be, warmed up. So I'll play a little bit. What I would say to Lucas or anyone else that's watching is if you are struggling with what your warm-up routine is, send me an email or give me a call and let's talk, because I think every single one of us is so different in what we are trying to achieve and what we want the fans to get from what we're doing, and understanding like where we are in that balance. Like what is my job? Is my job on this gig to really feel good about myself, or is my job on this gig to make other people feel good about me, or is my job to make other people feel good about them? And so where your head space is going into it makes a huge difference. Are you there to provide a service and help people feel good, or are you there to shock and rock? So on that note, I have a brand new group I'm going to announce for the first time. It's called #4DrumSets. That's what it is, 4 drum sets.
Nice.
That is going to make people go, so these are the best jazz drummers in Kansas City, and we will get together on Thursday night, May 3rd at the Ship and do a 30-minute set of brand new music. 4 drum sets. That's
May
what
3rd?
it is. May 3rd, Thursday, May 3rd. And then right after that is a brand new group called Rich Harshdrakiz, one word. Rich Wheeler, Jeff Harshbarger, John Kizillerman, and myself. And Kiz and I he'll play vibes, I'll play drum set, but we'll get very weird.
Okay, I didn't know if you
and
okay.
Scene.
All right, so I still need to play some of your music this second, and also we have a video question if I can play it here, and it's from a drummer young drummer, student at UMKC, Antoine Vanoy, and it's kind of similar to the question you just answered, but I'm going to play it anyways because he sent it in. If I can find it here.
How's it going, Brandon? My question for you is, as a multi-instrumentalist, how do you keep your chops up on all the different instruments you play?
Yep.
So Antoine had a question, how do you stay in shape or stay prepared on many different instruments for lots of gigs? I asked my college professor that, and then my grad school professor. I asked them all the time, and they said, well, you just have to work toward whatever gig's coming up next. That's a super easy answer, and it's not fair. The two sides of it are, first of all, the many things you're going to be involved in, you have to be aware of where you're at. Don't have really high expectations of yourself. For instance, I play tabla at a very beginner level. A lot of my friends think, "Oh, you play tabla," and it's like, no, I am at the very beginning level. It's a different thing, and so I'm aware of that. So I stay prepared on that instrument by playing it a little bit every day. I play guitar every day. I play piano every day. I play drum set every day. I play frame drums every day. I sing every day. So that's the first thing, is being in shape on all that stuff. You got to be doing it every day for your whole life. Secondly, leading up to the point where you're getting called for all those different gigs, you have to put the work in. And it's not a call to action saying, okay, Antoine, you need to go practice 8 hours a day. We all need to practice the amount of time we're inspired to stay with it. And for some of us, that's going to be a longer duration. Some of us are going to stick at it. I personally practiced around 7 or 8 hours a day for over 10 years. And that was my addiction. That was my, medicine, if you will, for my potential attention deficit, right? That was my ability to get in. So that's the two sides of it. First, try and get as great as you possibly can on every individual instrument, and then stick with it. And some instruments and some things may need to go by the wayside. I don't play marimba at the level now that I did in graduate school, and I don't have much intention to get back in the shed.
Right.
So.
Cool, guys. Well, I'm going to play some music here from Brandon Draper.
And I'm going to have to run, I think, when we play this.
Yeah, I know.
Could I say a couple last things?
Yeah, sure.
Is that okay on your show?
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on your show, Marcus Lewis.
You're welcome.
Sluis. I think Marcus is one of the greatest exports from beyond into Kansas City. And for those of you that don't know, he's not from Nebraska, guys. He lived there before he came to Kansas City, but he's actually not from Nebraska.
Oh, God.
Valdosta is your undergrad. So Marcus is an incredible treasure for Kansas City. And what I noticed that Marcus is doing that not a lot of other people are doing, but I'm starting to see it turn around, is Marcus puts almost 50% of his energy into supporting and developing and curating other people's dreams. And what I mean by that is education through Future Jazz, doing this show to reach out to other people. On Fridays, he does a Follow Friday thing where he does a shout out to other musicians. And the bottom line is the community doesn't thrive unless we all support each other. The community doesn't build and get to that next direction unless we all work together. You individually don't get to that next level unless you have people around you to support you. And Marcus is doing that really great. There's a lot of music business things in regard to Kansas City and the Kansas City music scene. I wish we would have had time to get into.
Yeah, man, we didn't get into that. We'll have to have you back.
We'll do another one, and
because that's like a full.
Well, yeah, we have a whole
episode
the music landscape in Kansas City has changed drastically from 2006 when I first moved here in a variety of genres. For better and for worse. And it's okay if things have gone different directions. We're here to try and support and make things more vital to our own organic community and what helps us thrive. So if you have any questions for me, email. You can Google my name, Brandon Draper. It'll take you to the website, my phone number, everything. That bell means I have to run upstairs and teach a class right now. So thank you so much, Marcus.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you,
See you
Brandon.
guys.
There's his website right there if you need that. So yeah, guys, thank you for tuning in to episode 14.
We didn't even talk about Drum Safari.
Man,
this whole kids thing. We're doing like 200 shows this summer.
Yeah,
like a whole tour. So lots to talk about. But I gotta go teach the kids before they leave their class.
Yeah. So Brandon also runs a nonprofit called Drum Safari, which is amazing. Is it drumsafari.org?
You got it. Yep.
So yeah, just go check that out. You can go to drumsafari.org and see what he's doing there. Yeah, we'll have him back and have him do a lot more.
Soda water. It's the best.
You just gave him free advertising, whoever that is.
You can't really read it though. I just told you that it was soda water. It could have been juice. You never know. Thanks, Marcus.
All right, see you, man.
Don't forget that light that's on the shelf.
Okay, cool. Thank you, man. So yeah, guys, this has been episode 14 of the Ask a Jazz Dude show. For those of you that are listening on KKFI, you can listen to Sam Wiseman's show, Jazz in the Afternoon, and that is streaming on kkfi.org. So check that out. Thank you so much, guys, and we'll see you next time. Squad.